Okay, thanks.
All right, we'll get going. So how many's actually doing the SMS Voluntary program? We got two. Okay. So I'm Kevin Sudbeck with Columbia Helicopters, and I have Patrick Johnson with S3. He kind of helped us with it. So what I'll do is I'm not going to talk about the process that was earlier today. I'm just going to talk about tips that we use to help us successfully get through the program and expedite it. Okay, so I am going to say something about the commitment from the top, because there's a commitment letter for those who have already done it. You have to have a commitment letter signed by the accountable executive. It doesn't matter what his organizational title is, president, managing director, whatever. And then the other people who should be on it are the Part 119s, director of ops, director of maintenance, chief pilot, because they're an integral part of it. It's not safety doing it for the president. Safety owns nothing. Per Part 119, I forgot what paragraph. The Part 119s, director of ops, director of maintenance, chief pilot, are the ones who are responsible to ensure safe operations. We just help. Okay, so the big thing is the FAA talks about hazards. Identify your hazards and fix them. What they don't say is you identify your hazards and fix them with your safety controls. And the safety controls are captured in the GOM, the GMM, whatever training manual, flight manual, whatever. And so when you have a hazard, let's say 5. Okay, we don't want a tool control. We don't want to lose a tool in the aircraft. So that's the hazard. Tools in it. Aircraft, the control is to control accountability, putting your screwdriver in a holster that's on a secure lanyard, so it always comes back. And then when it doesn't work, that means your safety control is ineffective, and now you have to fix it. All right, then the other aspect of it, which they don't say very clearly, is interfaces. It's like, how do you interface with the customer? How does ops and maintenance interface? How do you interface with the airport? Because one of the things you have to do is, does your emergency response plan interface with theirs? And you have to document it because it's all about documentation. And then when we talk about design demonstration, you're probably like, what's he saying? So the FAA wants you to design your SMS for the Part 5. And once they agree upon it, then now they're coming in and you have to demonstrate it to them. An example in flight would be, hey, you want to get a Part 133B human hoist lift. So you have to write that into your GOM, and then they come and watch you do it on a dummy to make sure you're doing it per your general operations or your ops spec or whatever, however it's encapsulated, whatever. And so that's same thing in this. Design it. Hey, we're going to do safety reporting or hazard reporting. We're going to build a hazard reporting system. It's going to do these things. They're going to come in and show me a hazard report from start to finish. And then you show them. So that's about it. And so what I'll say is Part 5 and their ECTs, and I forgot what that meant, provides the answer to the designs. All you're doing is matching it up to what your company does. And then again, the Big 4 and the ERP interfaces. First decision, are you going to do it? Will the company commit to it? Because once you commit to it, then AFS 900 comes out, they start the process, they interview you, they give you the big dog info and show they can do it. And then you're on a timeline because they want you to get it done. And so we were having a problem. We actually restarted the whole thing. After 2 years, we didn't really do much because we really didn't know what we were doing, and the FSDO didn't really know. And then a guy came in who had done it before, so they're like, you're the guy. And on the FAA side, so he started working with us, and that's how we got it. And then the second decision is, in order to enable this to work, and we work for a helicopter company, is the biggest thing that empowered them to make flight safety decisions was the land and live policy that HAI supports. So after we restarted, we put that policy in. And so now it empowered the pilots, like, well, I'm going to report a hazard now since I have some choice. And then there's some FAA, as he already showed, Tom, was it Tom?
Yeah.
Tom from Baldwin about the channels. The one thing I want to say is, do you need to hire a safety manager? Well, the way this thing is designed is the director of ops, director of maintenance, and chief pilot do it. You just monitor it. So we'll skip over that since we're kind of short on time. So here's another thing. Chat GPT. Now, in the middle of this thing, that thing came out. So we're like, write an aviation safety management system, spit it out. Write a safety policy, spit it out. It's gonna, you know, it combs the internet and finds the latest and greatest. And so it'll find AFS, it'll find part 5. So write it for part 5 and it will. But the thing it does is it's just an outline. It gets you started. It doesn't write it for you. I mean, I help out with a nonprofit charity. So I had to write a gift policy for me, and then I filled in the particulars of how we want to do it. Okay, so I was hoping to come out a little bit better, but one of the things the FAA gives you, and I hope they gave it to you, is a spreadsheet for the gap analysis. And on the spreadsheet is the safety policy, your organization safety objectives. So what they want is, do you have it? If not, then that's now part of your gap and you're gonna do it. In our case, we had it. It's in our safety policy bullet 5 in our SMS manual, but it wasn't exactly aligned with the FAA's design requirements. So the director of safety, me, had to go and fix it. The due date, July 11th, 2019, had to get it done. So, and this is like the very first thing you do. So you start there and go down. And so finally got it done on September 12th. And as you can see, it's part 583, part 5, you know, it's right out of part 5. So that's what the avionics guy for the FAA, that's what he said. Just follow that. It gives you the answers. You know, your organization's safety objectives. And don't do what we did. 4 objectives, 30 things under the 4 objectives. That's why I said we overcomplicated it. And then it's like, oh, why didn't we do that? Because now we had to track them for the FAA. We had to show the FAA we're tracking them, we had to show them. Don't do it. Make your start easy. Make your objectives easy. And we just had 4, except we put elements under. So just do 4 and don't add to it unless you really need to. And then what was it? A commitment to fulfill your organization's safety objectives. I mean, you're right. Columbia Helicopters is committed to our safety objectives, and then the president signed at the bottom to show that he's committed. So that's what bullet 5, safety policy bullet 6 is. It says exactly that. So we just started copying right out of the DCTs and doing it. Okay, so we used the Excel form. We used the Excel thing they gave us to do the design and then track it. Now, yeah, we have Baldwin, but the pilots didn't like going into Baldwin, so this is why I didn't want to say it in front. We, the safety team, uses Baldwin. So we bought a thing called FormSite, which is just a generic form, and you build them, you just build them. So we bought the one where you can build 100 of them because it was for the entire company. So for a safety report, they put it into FormSite. I take it, jam it into Baldwin because I need that. So when AGIP or Blues Petrol or ConocoPhillips wants me to show them when they come on the forward, you have a safety hazard where it starts from the beginning and goes all the way through closure. And now you need it for what you're doing, maybe not, but so you can either pay the big money, get Baldwin, you can do Excel FormSite, you can just do Excel, or you can do WBAT if you're small enough, it's free. And in fact, we still do WBAT because it's free, and I run my ASAP program on it because it's confidential. It's separate from everything else. So if they want to do an ASAP, they do have to log in to WBAT, fill it out, and so it's a little bit of extra work. And WBAT has some OSHA stuff in it. Baldwin, we did it because we have a 145 in our row also. So I needed a big area. What is it? We needed HSC because, you know, we got a paint booth media blast, chromium, cadmium, lead, you know, and they made it work for us. So that works. Strangely, the MRO people don't have a problem going in, filling out the forms, but the pilots and mechanics do. So this is what form site looks like. And so you can put a picture in. This is the safety, the system analysis, remember. So this is like if the chief pilot does a change, he'll go in here, put the data in, his name, who he is, and then he'll put in reason for the safety SRA, which is he's making a change. He'll type in, we have a bunch of questions in there to say, hey, in order to meet the regulatory requirements of Part 5 in the SMS Voluntary program. So now I just send the link to them and they hit it, fill it out. And Part 119, so the director of ops, they were mobilizing the aircraft to Burkina Faso, so he filled it out with all the risks, the mitigations, hey, we hired a company to help us do it, things like that. And then this is stored, now you have the documentation stored in a secure location that's as long as you're paying the money. And then when you're done, and it's not expensive, we pay like $400 for 100 forms. And that's, the MRO uses a thing called Ramco, like $40,000 a year, $400. So, but they do timekeeping, components, calibrated tools, blah, 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 in Ramco. And then here's the results table, so you can see, I put in one, Kyle Mosley or chief pilot put in one, and then there's a reference number, so I just track it by the reference number. And then when we have safety meetings, I pull up the hazard, we kind of review them. Everybody good with it? All right. Did it work? Great. We close it. Do we need to change the GOM or the GMM because of this? No. Oh, great. No changes to GOM because that's accepted too. And this is what WBAT looks like. And as you can see, ASAP. So that's what we use it for. ASAP reports. I don't get a lot of them. And in fact, this has got a whole bunch of incident hazard reports because I'm like, well, since I got this free database, I'm going to back everything up onto that. So Patrick hired some college kids. I send them the data. They're smart. They hand jam it in. I don't have to do it. And it's all in WBAT. And it's free. And we've had it for over 10 years. So. And then, you know, in WBAT is an SMS implementation manager. So there's a whole system in WBAT that will help guide you through the SMS. So instead of doing all your own stuff, you can do it there because the DCTs are in there. There's a meeting feature to do in-person meetings with the FAA because they can log into your WBAT and do it. And that's the big thing is the meetings with the FAA. And this is the biggest tip, weekly meetings. So we would meet with the FAA every other week. We did this during COVID, so we're Zooming it. And then remember, the FAA doesn't work remotely, they telework. And so, because I made that comment, they're like, no, we don't work remotely, we telework. So yeah, so weekly meetings. And what we would do is we meet with the FAA on one Thursday. The opposite Thursday was a 2-hour meeting with whoever needed to help us. And what I mean is the director of ops, sorry, you gotta spend 2 hours with us. We have to do this work that we owe the FAA next week. Or it'd be the director of maintenance. You have to sit down with us. We have to do this thing because we're meeting with the FAA next week. And so that kind of drove progress. And that we went from like not getting anywhere to getting it done pretty quick. And then we did Part 135 first because the FAA wasn't ready for a corporate SMS. But by the time we got it done, they were ready. So we took a month off, kicked off into the corporate SMS and got it done in like 6-7 months. And the reason it took 7 months is it took 2 months to get the signed letter from the FAA because they're looking for employees, but I helped them out. My daughter starts on Monday. And as you heard from earlier from Mrs. Baldwin, easy use. Don't complicate the program. Follow the DCT. Take your gap analysis, figure out what you need to do, and then take what it said and write it right into whatever you're going to use as your form. And because we're an MRO, we have a big technical publications library. So I had to do everything their way. And, you know, had to document track changes, all that other stuff. And then use a form site, if you can afford the 400 bucks, you can build all these things. Safety risk assessment form, and you can take the form that they give you and put it in the form site, so you're following the FAA. So when we gave the FAA, hey, we're using, here's the template, we just put it in this form site thing, because now it's ease of input, ease of tracking, ease of storage. They're like, oh, looks good, because we use their thing. And then, we do safety investigations, safety communications, we do other things. Emergency response is also a big thing about the interface, and that's one of the things they talk to the accountable executive about. So you got to prep him up. And so we have emergency response training, but the VP of safety does the training for the executive. It's the accountable executive that signs it off first, because you want to make sure it got done. And then keep in the meetings. And so then remember, identifying the hazards, and then how you're gonna fix it. You're doing safety control that's embedded in your GOM, which is your system, or your GMM, which is your system. So when it asks, are you making a system change? Yes, in the GOM or the SMS, or if you roll CAS in. We didn't roll CAS in because we have an MRO and CAS belong to quality. And so we kept them separate because that was an organizational requirement. And then did the safety control work or not work? Do your SRA report it out at safety assurance meeting, because that's one of the things they want to see. Did the accountable executive know about the safety control that was in effect? And then we used the screwdriver one, because we did have a guy who couldn't find the screwdriver in Burkina Faso. They did the thing, they reported it, they inspected the aircraft, blah, 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 moved it all up at force, they eventually found it like under a rag in his bunker or something. So that's how that works. Now, Patrick's going to talk about the audit thing, which he focused on.
I'll be brief. So I'll fly through some slides. So I'm Patrick Johnson, Managing Director of SR Consultants. So we're a safety consultant firm doing safety and security audits. We've been doing so for about 7 years. Working with Kevin. We do transit, we do aviation, because that's my background. So you name it, probably do it. Slide right through. All right. So my side of the tips is a solid foundation. Kevin really spoke a lot about it. Once you go down that path, the SMS Voluntary program, you got to document it. It's got to be documented formally. Because as an auditor, I'm looking for, if you say you're doing it and you wrote it down, where is it exactly? You got to know what your standards are. You have to know what regulations apply. Have you applied those? And can you show proof, right? It's that evidence to show it. So you got to tailor your process to your organization. You don't have to write all these complicated things in your system. You can tailor it down to what exactly you do, whether it's corporate, whether that's a site-specific repair facility like Kevin spoke about. We'll look at that specifically. You want to prioritize what you look at. What do you need first, right? The interfaces and processes with the company to the FAA, that should be your highest priority. Then kind of work your way down. You do these processes support the vision of SMS and then taking that voluntary program status account. You're going to want to assess the current state. Where is it right now? I know Baldwin talked about it in the presentation earlier today. Where are you at? You have to know what your baseline is, right? Where are you at in your safety policy and objectives? Do you have a lot of stuff that you go, wow, this is way too much? You got to really hone this down to what you really just need, or do you need more? Do you have your safety assurance processes, your safety risk management piece in there? Do you have a corrective action process? Do you have all these things in place, or is this something you need to work on? An IEP, because that's also my background in IEPs for Evergreen and Erickson back from 10 years ago. Those have to be in place, right? Or as the IEP is one of those voluntary ones, it's not necessarily required. You need to have some sort of auditing function to make sure that you're doing things independently to say, write it down, follow the process, and somebody's coming back to make sure that the quality control has been checked. Yep, correct, you did what you were supposed to do. That's where the gap analysis really comes in. So you can really do it internally, or you can outsource it. And I'm not conveying the fact that consultant I can do an outsource audit, that's fine. But you can do it internally. You can take someone who's not working in safety and show them what things you need to do, and they can check to make sure, are you following what you're supposed to do? And it really needs to be thorough. Top down, bottom up. Be impartial. So it can't be somebody from safety looking at what safety is doing. This brings that possible conflict of interest. You want to make sure it's objective. Next step's monitoring and follow-up. Report monitoring and follow-up. So once you complete the gap analysis, as Kevin talked a little bit about, it's documented. That's your baseline. You can say what things you need and use that to document your processes going forward to help build your SMS. And I know Paul talked about, Kevin talked about a little bit about your SMS implementation plan. So who's responsible for what resources are going towards it, where you're at to meet those. And it's just a means of documenting your SMS journey. So what would I do? In the auditor, right? I always want to know what the FAs require. What does the SMS voluntary program require me to do? Is it the direction we need to go? And then determine that combo executive, right? All Kevin talked about it. Do they have a good understanding of what the SMS voluntary program is at their level? Because they don't need to know the intricate details. It's too much technical knowledge. What do they need to know? And then gather your current organizational documentation, what you have. And kind of organize it to go, okay, I have my policies, my standards, and manuals, and then processes, and then SOPs, and work instructions as it goes down the line. Get organized about it, and then know what's requiring your company for the gap analysis. Can you do it internally? Do you need to outsource it? And if you have to outsource it, like what's that going to cost? Finding a reputable company to do so, and then getting state reward. All those things take a little bit more time, which is why I'm always lenient towards the interim. You also want to prepare your company functions to know what's coming, right? Operations and maintenance, they're heavily involved in other things. So SMS and a voluntary program and bring this on. It may be a lot for them to kind of digest. You got to give it to what's in it for them to bring on the voluntary program. We'll tie those things together. So you want to prepare for what's coming and get in those 1 to 2 hour meetings as you go through the process and steps. Everything takes time. SMS is not an overnight thing. And then just plan ahead of time for schedules, for document reviews, getting site visits if you're at different locations, if you're bringing them all in. You gotta get those things at least sort of a vision out front to stay in front of it versus behind. Know what you need to have in order to finish and get to that point where Kevin, I know the couple of you out there trying to get to the voluntary program. Stay committed. It's worth it. It's a lot of work. But stay committed to it. And you definitely can get a voluntary program done.
Okay, so I want to just add a couple more things. So one of the reasons we had him take an outside look is because we get audited a lot. Oil and gas, if you're trying to do oil and gas work, they send an auditor. UN send an auditor and things like that. So we're trying to audit proof the system by having an auditor look at it to get ahead of it. Otherwise, that they're like, oh, that's wrong, and then you got to fix it. And then the other thing is, even though he's a consultant, my favorite consultant joke is when you hire a consultant, ask them the time, they grab your wrist and look at your watch. You have the answers.
Yep.
Because all the consultant's going to do is look at what you're looking at and maybe get a different perspective. So that's why everyone is capable of doing it. It's a little bit of so we're here and we'll go outside. If for those people who are doing it, if you have any questions, troubleshoot a little.
Good questions.
Yep.
Oh, good. So, good question. First question is, where did you guys get your baseline SMS training from?
So, not SMS, but I started out in the Navy as a safety officer there in the Navy. And then when I got to Columbia, they sent us off to USC.
Yeah.
However, when I took over as director of safety, I sent my guys to TSI.
You said TSI?
TSI, so D.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I see the word USC, but I didn't think they were, for a college of their esteem, the academic rigor was not very good.
Was that Wigman and Chappelle? Wegman and Chappelle?
Well, no. University of Southern California.
Yeah, I think there were professors there. They taught that.
Yeah, I know. Chappelle, because a lot of those guys are ex-Navy guys.
Yeah.
I know almost all, because I did a stint at the Naval Air Training Command, so 3 of them worked for me. And, overseeing all the training, but yeah, so, and then I finished at the Naval Postgraduate School as a dean of students. So, I got force-fed academic stuff. So when I went to USC, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see the lure, but I gotta go to Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. But going to Oklahoma City was better. It was much more academic rigor there.
Yeah, awesome, great. Second question. I mean, 121's used Part 5, and so they started off and everybody was kind of at the same level and hadn't been doing it, right? So kind of everybody learned together. The aviation safety inspectors learned, the carriers learned, and they started to share that kind of information because they had the SMS focus group, and then they would have a yearly meeting. American Airlines has since taken that over, and they have it every year. If you hadn't been, I'd recommend that you go. Now take the 135 community. The rule is looming. In the meantime, all the 135 carriers, a lot of them has already started developing with a voluntary program. They've used a variety of methods to get to an SMS, right? Now we have this rule out there that no one really knows what is behind the screen. We were told it's not going to be onerous, more onerous than what the current EPRM is. So the question is, with all of that going on, none of the FAA and safety inspectors have been trained to do anything with SMS. So how do you guys see that unfolding with all these different variety of SMSs and the FAA community not really trained on it? How do you guys see that?
So I'm gonna talk about the journey. So when we decided to do it, I knew the director of safety up at Horizon. So I went up and said, hey, can you show me this? So her name's Sally, she's with Boeing now. So she showed us, it's great, and said, oh, I'm here, go talk to our safety analysts, because they're kind of living it. And they were incredibly using WBAT at the time. And then they've since gone, I think they're disconnected or something. And because WBAT was, they were overloading it. And then we went to a thing called the Aviation Safety Info Share, that's put on 3 or 4 times a year. And I ran into a Navy buddy who was working at Hawaiian Airlines. So he started telling me about how it worked there. And then, but there's something else going there. Oh, and then they had a helicopter breakout, and there's a lot of medevac people at the safety info safety share, and the Sacramento FISDO came. And those guys got way ahead of the SMS Voluntary program, so they were doing it. And that's when the the FISDO said, we're not taking on any more voluntary program people because we're already saturated, because they have a lot of medevac people in their area. And so I asked them, well, how'd you learn this? It's like, well, they handed us the manual, we started learning it. And the thing is, when we applied for it, our guys were scratching their head because they didn't know it. And they did ask for resource help.
Right.
So, but that means if they're gonna send someone outside of a temporary duty, it's a normal transfer. So eventually, about 18 months later, a guy transferred in, who'd done it before. And then he has been teaching everyone else, and so we've been doing it with him, but all those guys learned it through the journey and now are section heads. So they're now understanding it.
Right.
And so it's one of those things where if there's not someone at the FISDO that knows how to do it, you're learning it together. So that's going to be a struggle to answer your question. When the Part 135 comes out, everyone who's never done it before will be learning how to do it together.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to both the transit side, but I work a little bit with it as well. They're struggling with the regular being FTA, so CMR. There are people qualified under SMS, understanding SMS, so they don't necessarily have inspectors that come out like the FAA does. So my perspective would be the FAA inspectors are basically going to have an awareness training through probably TSI. That's the FTA's training arm, that's DOT's training arm, so that's probably the case.
Right.
So I see it through TSI train, and then they start to go through, like Kevin said, I learned it from somebody else, and now I'm getting, learning SMS with you as well. but I see the same struggle from a state program.
Yeah, so, I like the Volvo guy, but he pretty much just spit out what the FAA tells you. So it's kind of like, until you meet up with someone who's done it, and they tell you the tips of how they did it, then you're still kind of struggling. So,
So yeah, it would be state regulators.
anything else?
So don't you think it would be beneficial for the 135 community to come together and start to discuss? I mean,
Oh, yeah, if it's gonna be first upon us.
oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
that's not the light at the end of the tunnel, that's a train coming.
The train's coming, they have to get on board or.
So you think the 135 community would support something like that?
I would think so, because they're all gonna, like, these folks, they're gonna be like, I need answers, because the stuff, God bless the FAA, they hired my daughter.
Sure.
But a lot of the stuff they write's convoluted and long because they're getting paid by the page.
Yeah.
And so I had the same problem, because when I had the new water training command, I had a bunch of curriculums, each curriculum had 10 pubs, so I had 6 pubs I had to do. And we hired a contractor to do it, and they wanted to get paid by the page in every change. So I had to like tone them down. So that's the same thing.
Right.
So now that we got this big manual, and so now what people need is that just distilled down a pamphlet that's something useful. So that would be the biggest thing, is if you could get the 135s together and get the people who've done it before together, and it's like, okay, how do we distill this down to a small, 20-page pamphlet of tips and recommendations or lessons learned, I guess.
Right.
That would be the best way to support all this is going to be thrusted.
So what do you think would be the right kind of message to 135 community to get them to buy into something like that? Come and bring lessons learned, best practices, and share those.
Well, if you'd like to do an aviation safety, well, now you can go online and do it, but it's like, the other thing, now I said, what I was gonna say about the FAA, if you do it with the FAA, you're making them work for you, and you're getting some tax money back if you hire someone else. Because what was happening was the Forest Service did a gig with their MATOC program, the Type 1 to the Type 3, whatever, the heavy lift helicopters, where they kind of said, yeah, we want a safety program that is like this day or like this.
Right.
But they didn't really say it had to be, because last year at the HI Aerial Safety Board Conference, I pinned them down. And I made them answer the question, because I would be like, is this required to do ICAO? Well, we would like, I said, no, that's not the question I asked them. Did you make a requirement? No, it's a guideline. And as soon as I forced them to say guidelines, people were mad, because like Rotac, just over at the airport, they paid a bunch of money to be SBAO certified, so that they could get Forest Service work. Right. And so now all these operators were like, I don't have to pay a bunch of money to get SBAO certified. I just have to have something that mirrors it, or I can go to the FAA and do it.
Right.
So in that case, it saved them time, labor, and money to realize I just need to do it, and I can use the FAA, which is free, or just my labor time, or I can pay these other guys. So now it's like you can scale it, and we're going to offer you a pathway that's economical, efficient, and time. Right. So that would, I mean, if you came to me now knowing that, and you said, I got a path to SMS Voluntary program that's economical, timely, and cost effective, I jump on it, because I don't know how many man hours you spent, because it took us 6 years, for both of them, so it is a 3-year average. Sure. But the first one took 5 years, the second one was like 7 months.
So that kind of ties into when you were giving your examples of tips and techniques. One of the things, if I got this right, you were talking about the way y'all originally designed it. You had an SMS manual, and in that manual referred to like a DOM and DMM and so on. So you still have
It
that?
didn't refer to it, so we wrote an SMS manual based on ICAO, because we were in Papua New Guinea, and that's a different CAA, we're doing oil and gas, and the safety is a Part 119 position down there, and they use all the same numbers. So we needed a 135 manual in Papua New Guinea, and I was a Part 119, I had to go interview with them, which was funky, but anyway. And so, one of the reasons we wanted to, so we had a manuals based on ICAO, but we just wanted to have an SMS manual accepted, so we didn't have to write a manual for Peru, a manual for whatever, so it saved us time and money, because now I just send them a letter and they accept it. Not everybody accepts it, but pretty much where we're going, they accept it.
Okay. So you're,
Alan, I'm sorry, we gotta cut it short.
Yeah.
We got a few folks waiting outside, we got to transition.
Appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your perspective. Thank you.
yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks. Yeah, you bet, guys.
Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
We got the TOC Washington